Hi everyone, Jack Eppington with you for Space World Update, and I'm here to bring you an update on Boeing's crew flight test for the Boeing Starliner vehicle. Now, if you've been following this story for any length of time, you know it has been a long time since Boeing has done its second flight test, uncrewed, to the International Space Station. And the first thought was that that flight was successful. It was said to be very successful at the time, and it made up for all of the deficits that had occurred on the first flight test. That was the one that had clock issues and other problems and things like that. They had a number of issues leading up to that second test flight, but they got through it, and they had a apparently successful test. So, since then, the next step has been the crew flight test, taking an actual crew on the Starliner vehicle to the International Space Station. And so we've been waiting and waiting and waiting for Boeing to clear a number of technical issues that did seem to come up in reviewing the vehicle to go fly to the International Space Station with crew. The latest date was July 21st after a number of delays in it. And today, Boeing has announced that that date has been delayed again, and not apparently for trivial reasons. There was a media teleconference earlier today, along with NASA, Steve Stitch of the crew, commercial crew program, and others, explaining that some new issues have come up with the Starliner vehicle. Two issues in particular have delayed the launch of the Starliner crew flight test. The first has to do with parachutes. Now, parachutes on Starliner are an old issue. You know, they've gone through a number of concerns that NASA was a little worried about on them, but they thought they had beaten all that and had good parachutes to do that. They said that they had some concerns about some data on a part of the parachute called the soft link. Now, you know, they have the strings, the risers that go from the vehicle itself up to the canopy. Those are actually called stringers. But within that, there's a little segment. I believe it is the segment. I'm not 100% sure about this, but I believe it is a segment that connects the stringer to the canopy itself. It's called the soft link. And the data that they had in previous testing seemed to show that it was good. According to Boeing today, however, they had concerns about whether that data was valid. So they went back, and this is just about a week ago, they said, and looked at that data again and declared it invalid. In other words, the actual value of the load, I guess, that the part could carry was much lower than what they thought it was, and thereby the safety margin was lower. So that made them nervous, and they knew very well it was going to make NASA nervous. And so that is something that needs to be looked into. They're not completely sure what the problem is, but they're going to investigate it along with NASA. So that parachute part is one of two things. The other thing has to do with wiring harnesses inside the vehicle and the way that those harnesses are taped for safety. Now, to understand this one, you're going to have to go back a bit in history to Apollo 1. Some of us actually remember the Apollo 1 fire and how horrific that was. And the investigation into the Apollo 1 fire found that, well, the actual ignition source could not be positively determined. They did find wires where the insulation had been scraped off from the crew hatch going back and forth, or other parts scraping away at the insulation. And they thought it was a very likely possibility that scraping exposure of the wire inside the insulation had provided a target for an arc, an electrical arc, that thereby started the fire that killed all the three astronauts in Apollo 1. Since then, flammability has been a big concern in every spacecraft, specifically making sure that materials are not flammable. So, in this new crew spacecraft, the Boeing Starliner, they had carefully covered all of the wires in wiring bundles with this tape. And apparently, this is according to Boeing, in just the past week, they have discovered or realized that that tape used to protect the wiring is flammable. Yep, it's flammable. I'm not sure Boeing made clear to us why they're learning this now. Um, Again, they're going to investigate it along with NASA, but they don't want to fly with flammable wiring harness covers, and they don't want to fly with iffy parachute parts. And so this was not something, to their credit, that NASA forced them to do. They had internal discussions, according um, to the Boeing person, Mark Nappy, that went apparently all the way up to the top of Boeing, and they decided internally they were not comfortable with the risk of the parachute problem and the wiring harness cover tape. And they knew very well NASA was not going to be comfortable with it. And so they voluntarily scrubbed the date of July 21st, and they have no new launch date. Basically, Boeing is back to the drawing board. Again, they're going to have to investigate these issues, figure out what's wrong, and what to do about them. NASA has agreed to help. They've been very supportive, according to Boeing, and they are pledging to help whatever they can. As a matter of fact, as the parachute um, issue goes, they're going to be actually doing a new parachute test, they say, within a few weeks, and both NASA and Boeing will be cooperating on that. So that's the news. Once again, no new launch date for the Boeing Starliner crew flight test. They've got more work to do, and to fix the parachute and to find some kind of non-flammable tape to cover the wires. Oh my goodness, this story goes on and on and on. Well, we'll see. Well, every crew vehicle, every part, every aircraft has its series of things to correct. And you know the old saying, it's better to find this stuff on the ground. So we'll keep you updated. And that's the latest about the Boeing crew vehicle, the Starliner, and the non crew flight test for now. Bye bye.